Pictures, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in a student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wade in his white windowless van. Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Show X on VTWProductions.com. You're listening live at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this, the 23rd of April, 2017. Today, unfortunately, we are not joined, as we normally are, by our good friend Ken. He is busy with work things, but that's okay, because I do have several guests in for today. Today, I am joined by Amy. I'm joined by Ondine. And by Matthew. And so Amy is here from
my channel?
Yes.
Okay. Melon Dreams Cosplay. I have a channel and an Instagram. Still pretty small, but still trying.
And Ondine and Matthew?
We are from Zenko Akko Cosplay. We have both Facebook and Instagram with maybe not the best pictures, but really fun costumes.
Well, that's all right. More pictures incoming. As I honestly was here looking at my Lightroom and trying to, as I was going through right at the shoot we had done in the hotel room at COAF, and was going through editing up your cosplay pictures from that one.
Excellent.
And so on the way. And fortunately, as am getting back into country after the last almost month out, I have had several people asking me kind of where projects were and where things were happening with pictures from Colorado Anime Fest. And so now I'm trying to do catch up and say, don't worry, they're coming. I've just not been here. And so... And on that note, today's show is going to be discussing, essentially, the last 20-plus days that Amy and I spent in Japan. And we have Matthew and Ondine to come provide some color commentary questions and such like that behind it, because they spent some considerable amount of time
9 months.
in Japan. So 9 months themselves and know fairly well what's going on. And so kind of helping ask us about our experiences, things like that, as well as an opportunity for them to pimp out what they do and talk about their cosplay and such, because you've heard me mention them many times in the past. And so this is an opportunity to bring them on. So yes, as Copy is saying in the IRC, this is a basement party because I've been back for all of a day now, and this is day 2 back in the U.S. From traveling back from Japan. All right, so with that, we're going to jump right into basically an entire show of nothing but...
functional deviations.
As we are just going to discuss what happened. So, I wanted to start things off kind of chronologically, basically talking about that. Amy and I headed out to Japan come, the 1st of April, essentially. So, end of March, beginning of April was our travel days, as we left. Oh, I don't even remember if it was early or late on end of March. It's such
early.
a blur. So leaving early, the 31st, and then flying and essentially losing a day by traveling west across the ocean to get to Japan. Our flight that we took, we booked through Korean Air and went from Denver to Seattle, and then from Seattle to Seoul, Korea, and then there to Haneda Airport in Tokyo in Japan. All in that one day. I think the overall travel time was something like 22 hours or something, with layovers and things like that. In the air, I want to say it was only about 14 hours in the air, or somewhere around there.
15 and a half-ish.
Yeah, something in that area. Because the big flight over was like 10-ish, I think. Something like 10-ish hours on Korean Air. So that's how we got there. I chose Korean Air because it was essentially the best deal I could find at the time. Everything else that was going to travel around those dates would have been at least another $600 or $700 per person, and going up from there. And so I figured that was money better spent in country and not just on getting there. And so it also, because you can get direct flights from Denver, which great, that's awesome, one longer flight. However, that would have cost significantly more. Also, off the top, when we got to Japan, what made it a little easier trip to manage was being able to stay with a friend of mine, John, who is stationed out there, who had a 2-bedroom apartment that we were able to crash in one room of the entire time. So partially what made it a 20-day plus excursion was having not to pay for a hotel or lodging or Airbnbs or anything like that, because that would have tore into any kind of budget we would have had. A lot of people, when you think about your flights and you're going anywhere, we do this with conventions, we do this with any kind of trips. I mean, normally I consider even just a regular convention thing, oh, just reach in there and grab it. There's going to be crinkling. Part of what I did is I brought back a bunch of snacks and goodies from Japan, things to taste and try out and stuff like that for the group. A lot of it, I mean, for us, we either have already tried once before, or for me, a lot of this is stuff I just picked up kind of at the dollar store before leaving, saying like, ooh, I haven't tried that yet. Ooh, I haven't tried that. Let me try that next. So you'll see on the camera, and you'll hear the crinkling if you're just listening in to packaging and stuff as we go through goodies and things like that. But yeah, so we made the trip a lot more accessible for that length, because honestly, not many people, unless you're going for a specific purpose, be it work, education, something like that, would you spend more than maybe a week or maybe two somewhere overseas like that, at least in my experience.
Definitely.
I don't know if you guys have done otherwise.
Yeah, it's definitely finding cheap places or a friend to stay with is able to extend it where you can just experience a lot more than rush in, rush out.
Well, and that's key. And I will say there's plus and minuses to the time, being able to spend that much time there. Originally, when Amy had discussed going on this trip, it was kind of came forth from, I know I had talked about it at some point saying I would be down to go to Japan. It was always on my list of things to do. And for Amy had been planning to, has family out in Japan, has visited several times. You've been there, this would have been which trip for you? Like
9 or 10.
9 or 10? So Amy's been there several times, more than a couple, more than just what most people would do for visiting another country. And I think every other time, right, you went and spent it with family. And
Yep.
So, which is down in kind of the southern part of Japan. What area is your family in?
Kyushu Island, so it's the southern part of Japan, and they're from the prefecture of Kumamoto.
So not anywhere close to where we ended up staying, which was in the Tokyo region. And so for Amy, even this was a somewhat new experience, and traveling for one, not with family, for the first time, I believe, and staying in an area of Japan that you hadn't really spent much time in. So this was still kind of a touristy vacation thing for all of us, or for both of us involved, which was nice. I think it worked out well. But Amy had a desire to go back to Japan, wants to visit as often as possible, and reached out to me when earlier plans didn't quite work out, and just, instead of waiting until others could do it, was like, hey, I remember Wayne kind of said something about this, right? And from there asked me, I was like, well, shoot, why not? Let's do this, and planned it somewhat and headed out there. I will say that, as I say planned it, that's a loose term, because started getting a list of things that I could do in Japan, things I'd heard about, places I might want to go, and kind of just the overall time we'd be there, and got tickets, and mostly secured where we were going to be staying up to the last minute. But I think for myself, at least, even to the point of being in the airplane flying over, I was still kind of like, oh yeah, so this is happening. Huh. Well, I'm curious what the next month will be. Because I didn't have it like planned out to per day, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, anything like that. It was more of a get there and we'll see what happens. And so that was kind of my going in plan and what started everything. Alright, so with that, I'd like to say that initial impressions, at least flight over and stuff, was fine. No real challenges getting there.
Was it small seats?
No, well... So,
It was economy, so...
yeah, it was economy
Well, no,
seats, so
besides
nothing
economy.
so nothing like huge or awesome by any means. And unfortunately, on those bigger planes, I think we're on 777s each way for the actual airplane that we're on. But that sucks because I almost wish they had a further back entrance for us, plebes in the economy class, or us peasants, because they put you in there on the plane and you get to walk by business class. And see the basically full lay down seats and their own little mini cubicle type things and stuff, where it's like, well, that looks like it'd be nice. Huh. And you get to go back to your little like sardine can of where everyone's going to be sitting, together and make friends for however many hours. Because the flight out from Denver to Seattle was fine. I was on Alaskan Airline as part of the overall booking. And that was just normal American kind of flight, although they did have Wi-Fi, which was cool. That was the
first
only
flight.
flight we had that had Wi-Fi of the entire trip. So I think at one point I had tweeted something like, oh, I'm flying through the air right now, or something like that, because you could do basic things like social media communications, although you couldn't do like video streaming or something like that. So it had some limits, but still it was pretty cool. But getting on Korean Air, I chuckled because partly one of the things that made me happy to book it was all their advertising, and I will tell you I'm a sucker for good advertising and reward good advertising, because all the Korean Air videos show like all the cute staff walking in all their matching little uniforms and saying they'll treat you well and kind of thing. And honestly, a lot of that comes to be true on the flight. They all are wearing the same uniforms. It feels very harkens back to like what I've heard of air travel back in the 50s and stuff like that, like the old romance era of air travel where they really treated you like a guest on the planes versus just money, like a lot of American airlines do. To the point of like even the meals they serve. I've been on like even when I flew United out to Europe, and they were fine, but flying on a different country's airlines, their meal selections tend to be more to their taste. Mm-hmm. And so it's like your first kind of cultural interaction that's something different. And I love that, on the longer flights like that of the ocean, you tend to get hot meals, which is nice, not just peanuts and crackers and such. And some selection of those, as well as on Korean Air, they give you at least a option of a drink of wine with one of your meals, with your dinner meal or such, which I will still say best for if you like to imbue while flying. I still recommend Lufthansa from Germany because they feed you just as much alcohol as you want. Like every time, just like, more, what, beer with this? Yes. You have liquor for dinner? Yes. Oh, for the midnight thing, you have like a late night drink too? Yes. So if that's your thing, then definitely fly one of those airlines. But still it was great, and I enjoyed the food and everything like that. The seats were tiny, and in all honesty, what was nice about them is they had good tech. And so they had options to charge all your devices. They had in the seats themselves a USB, so they could just plug right in power. And then between the seats underneath, they had like the universal travel plugs. And so you can plug any device you had in there. So you had power, which is nice for your own devices, which I think anymore these airlines have come to understand that most people actually bring their own entertainment and don't have to necessarily rely on what they provide.
Right.
But at least Korean Air had an option for that as well. They did have in-flight entertainment, both like in little touchscreens and such, where they had some movies, TV shows, music, and actually I think for Amy and I, probably one of our not favorite but silly things we throw on there was kind of like the in-flight information. Like showing where your flight was and a little 3D map that you could scroll around and things like that.
love those.
Right. Well, and a piece of that was actually they had cameras, both a forward-facing and downward-facing camera.
Neat.
That you could look, and so when you're taking off, landing, or flying over there, you could hit that and be like, "Woo! Oh, look, it's looking down." And I didn't use it much because we had seats that were basically window seats, or close enough to be able to look out. But they also had an option in for one part of like window seat camera or something like that, I think, or something that said window seat. But again, I don't think we ever used it because it wasn't in that menu. It was in another menu that they had a thing like it was a window view or something. I think it was for the people in the center aisle.
Okay.
But I never used it because we had a window.
Yeah.
I just looked at it as like, oh, that. It seemed like an option that you could at least kind of see what maybe you'd be looking out the side of, for like because they have essentially like 6 seats and this one was like 4, I think, 4 seats in the middle that are the center aisle seats versus each side that has your traditional kind of 3 per side. So they had at least a selection of ways you could kind of keep yourself entertained. Oh gosh, yeah, not even to Japan yet, just transportation piece.
When we flew, we had an older Japanese Airlines 747, and that one was designed for the Japanese. So it's good to hear you had
tiniest seats. That's why we always ask, because we were crammed in there where I'm not very tall. I'm only about 5'3", and I had very little leg room. And we had been planning this trip for months, going on a study abroad, and I was ready to cry and go home.
Oh no, before even getting there?
Yeah, it was so cramped in the plane. So I'm so pleased to hear that you guys had like like a
Modern.
comfortable.
Well, I
more
mean, it was
modern
no
plane.
worse than most flights I've taken.
Yeah,
essentially.
see.
I mean, it's still economy, just like Amy said. I mean,
But that's better than we had to.
yeah, no, that's
On
oh
miniature.
gosh, no. Ours was the Korean airline didn't feel any different in scale to any other I've been on. I mean, same kind of legroom lacking or whatever, and that they did, unlike cheap airlines, have normal padded seats that you could recline and things like that.
Nice.
And so it felt like a normal airline to me. And there was a question in the IRC about whether we had heard about, while we were traveling, the United fiasco and the guy that got dragged off the plane. And yes, we did. We kept in with some of the news based on YouTube and watching comedy shows, I'd say, more than anything.
I've seen a lot of people reposting it on Facebook,
Yeah,
so that's how I got
a lot
it.
of social media that kept us kind of informed while we were out and about, because admittedly John didn't have normal television and anything. He just did everything internet, and so we didn't at all see like local programming while we were over there. So we didn't see news or anything like that, and so all of it was thank you social media and people posting what they care about and some of the news stations, stuff like that. And for me it was a lot of the comedians at night, and catching their stuff, kind of the late night shows, to catch up with what was still happening. So yeah, no, we did not have any of those experiences. So no one kicking and screaming off the flights for
Nope.
what we did.
We only did Korean Air and Alaskan Air, but for me, the only disappointment with Korean Air was that normally, for the entertainment, normally I would take a Japanese flight company called ANA, and their entertainment had a lot more variety of shows and everything. In each show, they would have a full season, but as Korean Air, they would have a few selection of shows and only 2 episodes for one season. And that was a bit of a disappointment to me, just because I normally would pass my time watching like different episodes of the same series or whatever, but this flight only had like 2 episodes of series that I had no interest in. So it was disappointing for me in the entertainment aspect, but I slept most of the way back anyway, so I didn't really care, but it was just disappointing for me.
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
miss it
for
while you were
me,
sick.
and what I took advantage of is I watched their movies, because through it I was able to correct on the TV show type things. They only had a couple episodes of any show, so you couldn't really sit in there and like binge watch a full season of something, which admittedly that's kind of like the thing we do now, is like give me a full season of something and I'll just watch that whole thing and be done with it. So for me, I watched a few movies, because I caught Sing, I caught on the Alaskan flight like most of Trolls, but didn't finish it. Landed too soon, and then I'm trying to think some of the others that I watched over the movie size, because I watched mostly movies. I think at one point when I was actually going to sleep, I put on Rogue One because they had that on there, and I'd already seen it a couple times, so I was just like, that'll be background. And I know on the way back, I ended up watching most of, except for like the last 10-15 minutes of The Arrival, which I quite liked. Oh, on the way out, I also had seen Passengers. And it's great because at least there were new enough movies. There were ones I had kind of wanted to see anyways, which is nice, and saw a few. So on the way over, I barely slept and mostly watched entertainment. On the way back, maybe a little bit more. And even though I had preloaded like my phone with like a full season of Supernatural, because thank goodness all the options there are now to download things so that you can watch them when you're offline. And so I prepped for it, and I didn't really take advantage of it, unfortunately. Which is good. It means they had enough entertainment I could do that. As well as listening to some of the music and things. And I know on the way back I'd listen to, what was it, a K-pop station or J-pop type one or something? Because I'd
Fun.
seen, and one of the seats in front of me, I kind of oversaw, they were playing some music videos or something like that. I was like, I am curious of what these are, and found that channel and walked through it, which was kind of entertaining. But yeah, so the entertainment-wise, if you're looking for television shows, probably not the best options. But then we got to Japan just fine, and we showed up late. It was late at night. It was first thing in the morning, late at night in Japan, because we had to sleep in the airport or kind of hang out there, because we showed up. I want to say it was like 11 o'clock ish by the time we had gotten through everything at night in Tokyo. And the challenge there is that while they have very good public transportation systems, they do shut down at night. And if you're not ready for that, you might find yourself stuck somewhere. So we had been warned, or John had kind of told me that, and I had done some searching online, and big shout out from me for transportation information things to Google, because Google Maps was like my guide through everything Tokyo, and they have so much good information about transportation on Google. And so I looked and could query, like, I'm landing at this time, I want to get to here, what transportation options do I have? And most of them showed like, oh, you can get about this far, and then you'll have to wait till the first things in the morning at like 4 or 5. I was like, no. So instead, we basically hung out at the airport till 5 something, like 5:30 in the morning, or maybe 6.
It was just 5 in the morning.
Was it 5 when they first ran? Yeah, because they started selling tickets when they finally opened up the booth. And I will give credit, Japanese are damn punctual. When they say they're going to start and open something at 5, that's exactly when it opens.
Yes.
Because we saw the people arriving and kind of getting ready, and people, it's weird too, because we had walked away from where the ticket sales were, because our transportation back ended up being a limousine bus out to one of the major stations, and then a train from there to Fusa. And like, we walked away from the counter at first probably 10-15 minutes earlier than that, or something, a little more than that, to maybe use a restroom or something else beforehand, and there was nobody in the line. We came back just before it was open, at like 10-15 minutes before it was going to open, and there was a queue like all the way through it, and people were just like, whoa, where'd you all come from? What? And then but also very efficient. So once because I was a little concerned, because when the ticket booth opened, the first train was going to be like, I want to say the train we're getting on was going to be like a half hour after when it opened or something like that. It wasn't a ton of time, or not the train, but the bus. And so we didn't want to be stuck in line still and then have to go maybe miss the first bus. But they processed super quick. They got through, went through, and that was probably one of my first real interactions with having to do any kind of paying for something or anything like that. Because Amy was smart and changed her money over prior to doing the trip to get a bunch of yen. I, just through not proper planning, was too late to order it from the bank or anything like that, and then missed chances to do it in the airport initially. So when we landed, eventually I had to change it over somewhere. I forget where I changed it. If I did it in Denver, if I did it when we landed. But eventually changed over my money, got some and changed it. But having to actually purchase those tickets and first were kind of my initial interaction with what it's like to buy things in Japan and talk to people and stuff. Or I can't say talk to people because I don't understand a thing. No Japanese here. Nope, I fail. To try to get the tickets to it. And I kind of use this as a discussion of my whole way of getting through Japan with buying things is grunting and pointing. In the sense that I could do a lot of like, I want to go here, yes, and I need 1, 2 tickets, whatever kind of thing, and for the most part that worked. I was able to buy pretty much everything I wanted to buy the whole time, and eat and stuff like that. So much success for just not even communicating. Hand gestures and like smiles and cash in hand help. But got our tickets, got out there. I'm trying to remember what the train initially. I thought we had a little confusion initially, for my part, trying to find the first train and the station and kind of where to get our passes and stuff like that. Because I know initially I went to just a machine, and it might have been the express, like the bullet train or something. I was like, nope, that's not what I want, and having to find the right machine. But even that wasn't too difficult. Just took a little bit of time.
I mean, the maps were color coordinated, and so Google Maps would tell us the line, and it would have the color associated with it. So we just had to look at the maps that they had at the station and coordinate the colors with each other, and that was pretty simple. I don't know what would happen if you were colorblind and in Japan that didn't speak Japanese. That would kind of suck.
That would make it difficult. Yeah, well, and admittedly, like, part of the color poorness of my part led me to the initial confusion, because one of the lines on the app I had, or on Google Maps on my phone, it looked to me very, I don't know, a bright orange or something like that, and yet on the train station and signs, it was enough of a different hue that for me initially I didn't see the correlation, and that confused me a little bit. Later, after being there for a while, it made sense.
Yeah.
But initially I was kind of like, I can't find this color, and that was just my eyes. But eventually we got there. We got on the right trains, and I think we were fortunate enough that we were taking the early ones, that we didn't have to suffer too much with crowded trains, at least initially getting there. I think because we arrived on like a Friday.
Well, the
or-
trains only get really crowded during rush hour on the way home.
Yeah, on the way home is the bad one.
Yeah, so I mean, either time in the morning, if it wasn't rush hour, then it would have been fine.
Yeah, because we got there and it didn't feel like there was too much hassle with our luggage and stuff on the train. And when we got to the Fusa station, I didn't know exactly where John lived because the way the addresses were, I tried putting it in Google and it was just like, for his actual apartment. So I didn't even know where to go. But thankfully, he had taken time off work and was able to come get us. And so we said, hey, at the station, sitting here, I see a McDonald's across the way and, some store over here, the Seiyu. So here? And he came and picked us up in his car. It's funny, though, because if we had known where he was, we spent most of the rest of the trip doing this. Essentially, we just walked back and forth from the station and his apartment because he really did not live far from it. Like
It was
a 5 minute
just down
walk.
the street.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even a mile. I don't even think.
No, it was super short. And so if we had known, we could have just walked right there. But he was gracious enough to come get us, pick us up, and then take us to his apartment and get us settled in there, and kind of start our first real day in Japan. Which is crazy too, and he gave us a lot of credit because we got there to his place in the morning. Because we started early in the morning, 5-something for our travels, and it only takes less than 2 hours to get to his place through all that, like an hour and a half maybe. And so we were there like 7 in the morning or something like that, and he was just kind of like right off the bat, like, "You guys hungry? What do you guys want to do?" Right? And I think
we had McDonald's for breakfast when we got there.
because he stopped, get in his car, and we drove. Not even around the block. It was like
We
a
just
little
turned the corner.
Yeah, a little corner around to the McDonald's, and he parked right there. Although it's not parking. There's no parking there. It was. He parked into the spot next to it that says, like, "Don't leave your vehicles here," and put on his hazards, and we just ran inside, ordered it, and
That's
came
typically
out.
what Japanese people do when there's no parking and they're not supposed to park there. They'll go on next to the curb, they'll turn on their hazards and walk out of the car with their car still running, and then come back.
Which is fine, except for the few times that, like, meter maid essentially or police or whoever will actually come by and ticket a car. John had told us several stories of where he had to pay a significant amount for a couple times he'd done that.
It was if he turned off his car.
If you turn off your car, which he never turns off his car in Japan if he doesn't have to. But I actually watched at one point, different day or something, the cops outside the 7-Eleven that was on our way to and from ticketing a car that was sitting there, and I was just like, "Oh!" Because John said it was something like a $200 fine or something. It's just like real rough. So he was very cognizant of, like, if you see anybody, let me know, and we'll run back to the car. But we got McDonald's first thing just because, like, real quick in, and it was just McDonald's breakfast. Although most fast food restaurants, McDonald's is very good about it, will find local flair to throw into their menus. For them, it was actually very similar to a normal anything you can get in the States, except I noticed they had, a teriyaki egg McMuffin, essentially.
That I had for breakfast there. They had, normally for lunches, they would also have the fish burger always available. I'm not really sure if the regular McDonald's here has that option. But they had, for a seasonal thing, they had a sakura or cherry blossom flavored McFlurry that I ended up trying. But they do have Japan-only options in their menus as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's like anything you'd find for fast food. You try to keep local. And the interesting for me is because, I don't think of beef as a big thing in Japan, especially because you hear Kobe beef, but that's super expensive and nice.
Right.
So I was kind of like, I don't think they have regular, like, just beef farms like we'd have to. Well, and so noticing that they proudly showed that McDonald's had all Australian beef.
Yep.
And such. I was like, oh, so that's where they get the majority of their meat. Okay, that makes sense.
That's one of the things that got me in Japan because they mix it a lot with pork.
Okay.
Because beef is very
it's-
expensive because they don't do.
It's expensive, so it ends up being cheaper to mix it, and I tend not to like that mix. So we were up north in sort of a rural-ish area, and McDonald's was the only place that we would have access to pure beef.
Oh, wow.
If you can call it pure beef. It
Well,
may
so
or may not be.
I will argue that it was probably pure beef, right? Now, maybe it's more parts of beef than what we're used to, but it's beef. Because I was quite happy with it. And, it's just like you said, it's an Australian beef but McDonald's was as you would expect a McDonald's to be pretty much anywhere. It's one of those safe bets if you're really unsure initially getting in anywhere, or if you need somewhere to go that's just familiar. go to McDonald's. It'll work. And even there, I mean, there's still options. You can play a little bit. I eventually got the teriyaki burger. It was really good. And I noticed in the breakfast, like, one of the things that was really nice is their eggs, I don't think, come at all from liquid eggs like you'll get here. And their, whatever, the way they treat their oil or whatever oil they use, their, like, hash browns and stuff like that just tasted much fresher than what I'd normally expect from an American McDonald's, which was nice. It's just, like, kind of like, oh, hey, this is different in a really good way. Although, actually, no, McDonald's had a pretty straightforward menu you'd expect. Some other places were a little different. But then what else did we do that first day? Because we actually kind of went real hard.
We went driving up in the mountains a bit. We went racing in the mountains a bit, I think.
Was that the first day? Because we did go.
So.
John took
we
us,
didn't go racing. I think we went for a drive.
Because we went racing a second day, another time up in the mountains around his area. But he just kind of took us around to show us a little bit. Because we dropped our stuff, and then I think he did take us out that day. Because I have some pictures that were from kind of the first, just up in the mountains a little bit, and then we went back up there again and went like racing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because John has an Evo and he's a really good driver now.
Well, we did quite a few things on the first day too, and then we come back and we felt like we pretty much accomplished everything we wanted to do while we were
well,
out
like
there
within the first weekend
day.
or so, right? The first 2-3 days in Japan, we kind of did all of the big things we'd want to do. Because that first day gosh, I should look through. I think I have my photos and stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking through my photos to see if I posted what we did that day. Oh, there was a temple up the street from the apartment that we went to go check out.
So one of the first things we did is, we walked to the temple. It was just a couple blocks from his house, which was real pretty. Had a nice big koi pond in it that had mostly just a bunch of big koi of different colors and a couple, at least one turtle. I know there was one turtle in there. And I started taking some pictures because I was a big fan of just wanting to capture the architecture and kind of see the things and take pictures as much as I could.
Yeah.
And so I know some of that was on there.
We went to eat lunch at the Stone Bowl.
Yeah, so our
said Stone Bowl.
first experience at Stone Bowl of the 3 times we ended up going, I think.
4.
Or was it 4? So one of the funny things is that John has been in Japan for over a year and eats at maybe 3 restaurants in Fusa. And Stone Bowl's one of them. It's a Chinese restaurant that I don't know the actual name of.
Yeah, it was like a Chinese restaurant that was like, it had a mixture of a variety of different like countries. I mean, they had a painting on the wall that had like, I think they had JFK painted on there. They had like some famous wrestler or something painted on there also. Like it was just like a Chinese restaurant with kind of like some kind of different twist on it.
International
Like
flair.
yeah, like an international flair or something like that. It was very weird. And John would just call it the Stone Bowl because that's what some of their dishes were coming out of, was like a hot stone bowl where the food was sold, but it was actually a Chinese restaurant with a different name.
Yeah, essentially one of their types of dishes were considered the Stone Bowls, these large, hot bowls that the food actually, as it's served to you, is still cooking in the bowl, and which is good and bad. It's awesome because fresh and hot. Bad because I'm hungry and smell it in front of me and I can't eat it because it will sear my mouth, which I found out probably the second or third time we were there because I didn't wait long enough, and sure enough burned the tip of my tongue enough that it got like a little blister on it or something. It was just like, oh, this sucks. But yeah, ate at Stone Bowl. I think so. I have some pictures that were from...
No, we totally went driving up in the mountains, though, racing a bit. Because I remember at Stone Bowl we had kimchi bowls, and it was too spicy for me. So I definitely chugged down a whole bunch of cups of water, which is when we went to go driving up in the mountains a bit, and we had to stop like 3 times in a half an hour so that I can go pee, because I drank so much water to get that kimchi spice out of my mouth.
Was that why? I didn't remember, because for me it wasn't so spicy, but I don't remember. We all had gotten different things. I didn't get kimchi initially. I just
we all bought the kimchi bowl the
Did we
first
all
time.
get it?
Because John was like, this is the best. I recommend you guys have this. And we're like, all right, we're going to get that too. And he said it wasn't so spicy. I can't handle spicy very well. So I ended up getting it, and I ended up chugging like 5 cups of water or something. And then we went to the mountains and we raced a bit, and I had to use the bathroom 3 times in a half an hour because of that water.
Consequences.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was entertaining. It was fun. See, I have some pictures showing for the people watching on YouTube of that first temple that we had gone to, and It was pretty, and unfortunately, I can't scroll through the pictures too fast because it interrupts the music stream because it's all pulling through the internet, like what, or through the local network. Because these are all raw images that are way too big since I haven't edited them yet. But I will have to go back and try to find some of the additional pictures on that for things from up the mountains. But the nice thing is, Fusa is kind of on the edge of overall Tokyo. Kind of everything leading up to Fusa and just passing on the train line at least is Ome, just further up. But everything between like all of like downtown Tokyo to Fusa is pretty much all city. There's not a whole lot of break of any kind of countryside or anything in between. When you get on the train, you're seeing city the whole way. Fusa is right out there when you get to the edge of that first big, like the megalopolis that is Tokyo. Because Tokyo is interesting that it's both is it a prefecture or...
Tokyo? Yeah, Tokyo's
Yeah, so it's both a city and prefecture, essentially.
They call it the capital, but yeah.
So, yeah, but it's just this big megalopolis of multiple areas of city that all connect with no real break between. And so you get, like, different districts and stuff within it. And what was cool about Fusa is since it's on the edge there, we were actually able to get out of the city when we went for the drive and get up into the hills a little bit without going very far. It was like a 10-15 minute drive, and we were out into hills and then drove up from there. And that was nice because coming from the city side, it's very lush, and the hills and just the greenery and things like this. Really pretty up there.
Yeah, and the cherry blossoms just started to bloom, so we got to see the cherry blossoms actually typically kind of in the beginning of their blooming when they were in full bloom, and then when they all fell, because by the time we left, the cherry blossom trees were pretty much covered in leaves at that point.
Yep.
And there weren't any blossoms left. So we went at the best time, which is where the cherry blossom season started. I remember on our first day out there, we pretty much did so many things on the first day, but still came back at an early time, because after we got there, we went to go visit the temple. Well, we had McDonald's. We went to visit the temple after we settled everything in the apartment, and then we eventually had lunch at the Stone Bowl, I think, after the temple. Then we went driving in the mountains, and on our way back, we were planning on doing something else, but Wayne and I just started like zoning out and dozing off on the way to whatever we were going to do next.
Well, we were heading back and we were kind of thinking about going out and doing something.
I think we were going to go to Don Quixote or something.
And...
no, we were probably going to go to the Yokota Air Base, maybe.
Was there... It was somewhere where we kind of said, oh, we'll go check something out. And, one thing, not having to drive in a vehicle and having someone else drive you, yet alone after 20 hours of traveling kind of deal. Like I said, we'd been going hard. Mm-hmm. And we were getting close to 5 or 6 in the evening kind of thing.
No, it was so we were pretty much back at the apartment by 5. Because that's when we went back and took a nap, and then we slept for essentially 12 hours.
Yes.
And then we woke up, and then we woke up at 5 in the morning the next day, and then I'm like, I have no jet lag. Not at all, because we slept for 12 hours.
We did great. No, transitioning actually was wonderful in the sense that first day was tough because we were done by 6 in the evening, just done. John's great because unfortunately his work schedule is kind of a mess, and so when we were ready to turn in, he was like, "No, that's cool," and he passed out as well.
Yeah, he said he would like to take a nap too, because essentially we were planning on taking a nap, and apparently we all did this thing where I woke up at 9 and I realized everyone was still asleep, so I guess we're done for the day, and I went back to sleep. And I think after that, Wayne woke up at a specific time and thought the same thing, and then John had woken up around 11, and he woke up. He's like, "Well, I guess we're doing this," and we went back to bed. So.
Yeah, so we all kind of, is somehow throughout just looked at each other like, nope, still asleep, and all of us were like, I could sleep more, and just passed out, which was probably the best thing we could have done.
I know Wayne and we woke up around 5, so we slept for about 12 hours, and then John had stayed in bed till I think 1 in the afternoon. Honestly,
was it that far the first day?
I think it was, or he slept a lot longer than us.
Yeah, he was out longer than us because we got up early.
Maybe it wasn't that day.
I don't think it was that late that day, but we eventually got up the next day, and I want to say
maybe around 9.
It was something where I don't know when we got out of the house, but it was somewhere around 9 or something, because we had come in, we hadn't no supplies, and John, bless him for giving us time, the space to stay, but he is definitely living as a bachelor in the sense that he's way preemptively getting ready to leave Japan with next orders and such. So he's down to bare minimum in his house. He's honestly living out of a suitcase. Has no pots and pans. We opened the fridge and there was like a couple drinks.
There was a lot of like strong zeros, like a whole bunch of beers in there.
Yeah, and that was like it. Like no food,
Some
anything
apple
like that.
juice.
So
You
we're
had
kinda
a pack of butter.
Yeah.
Nothing to put the butter on.
So we looked at her kind of like, huh. And I don't remember if we kind of ventured out ourselves that morning to go back to McDonald's or not. Or
We did not.
yeah, but at some point he got up as well, and we all went out. Gosh, it's such a blur. It's been a while. Trying to think like when we, kind of what we did next with that. But that I know overall our first like full day there after the travel days and our going hard that first time is didn't we take the train and go downtown? And is that when we went to like Shinjuku and all that with John as well?
I am checking my YouTube channel right now because I have my second day up on there. I vlogged like every day for like 5 days, and then after that I'm like, I'm done. So we just kind of rested. Okay, no. We went to... Where did we go?
We went to Shinjuku stuff because I have pictures of mine showing
we
us...
went to Shinjuku, and then we went to the arcade, and that's where we took our purikura,
our pictures?
Our pictures, where John is like a complete idiot. But yeah, so we went downtown, and we also checked out the bar area, the really narrow alleyways where there's just a whole bunch of very narrow bars.
Yeah, it's like basically, I won't say the red light district really, but it's just like
I think
old
it was
bars.
the red light district though, because I was reading the sign on the top and it said red light
Okay.
on there, but it didn't say district, but it said red light.
Yeah. It's basically a bunch of old school bars that are so tiny.
Oh, okay, I know. We did breakfast. So on our second day of Japan, we did breakfast at the little rice place. So we went in and ordered our food at the machine.
Oh yeah.
And then we gave them our tickets, and they gave us we had breakfast meals, and John didn't like the breakfast meals, so he ended up getting a lunch meal. We got to the Nakano train station by 11:30 in the morning, and so we got off on Nakano, and then we walked to I think it was Shibuya actually that we walked to, and then we eventually went to Shinjuku. And I think that was the second day where we wanted to walk to Shinjuku from Shibuya, and we ended up in Harajuku as well,
Harajuku.
and then that's where I almost died of hypothermia.
Well, that was the end of the
Yes.
night. So going through, the nice thing was, and I took pictures I'm showing now of kind of like the small alleyways and such in this area, because we went during the day, and this is an area that's meant to be at night, getting drinks and stuff, which we came back to another night, and found out that you need to go early. But to me, it was kind of that quintessential, you go to Japan, these tiny little streets, right? And this is in cities that normally the streets are actually pretty big and open and such, when these are just smaller areas where it's like the bars that have probably been there forever. And when you actually look into them, they maybe sit 5 or 6 people at this tiny bar with just enough room for whoever's serving to be behind it. And
Nice.
And they stack them just left, right on top of each other. And so you step like half a step over and you're at another bar kind of thing. They're just tiny. And we did something like, looked at a couple of them where John tried to like stand next to the door kind of thing and was bigger than the door as a whole. Like,
The doors are pretty short and very, very narrow. Like, you'd probably have to sidestep in that way. And even I would have to sidestep. I'm not that wide of a person.
no, you're tiny. And these things were really like silly small.
And typically, though, we did visit there around the nighttime once, and most of the people that were drinking at the bars were all pretty much foreigners at the same time. There were a few locals there, but I noticed a wide amount of foreigners pretty much drinking in those spots, though.
During the day or
No,
Yeah,
this is all when we went
this was
back at
like-
night.
yeah.
It seems like that area opens up somewhere around like 9 o'clock at night or something when it starts hitting 8 or 9. Because we had showed up somewhere around like 10:30, 11 to kind of walk around, and we would not have been able to fit the 4 of us in there. At that point, John's wife had come into town and was hanging out with us as well, and there was no way 4 of us were going to fit, And so we just kind of wandered through, kind of looking, and we tried going upstairs a few places and looking around, and we just couldn't accept any of them. It was like, let's keep going. That's all right. And so...
So for our second day, the picture that Wayne has up now, we also went to see a temple that was down there too. So we went to take some pictures of that temple. That was very pretty because their cherry blossoms were starting to bloom and such as well. Did you have anything to add? Because I was going to move on for what we did next.
For that one, it was for me. It was one of the first, like, really getting to look at the architecture and such, and it was right in the middle of the city, in this temple, and so it really popped. It was gorgeous, and of course, me doing photography things, I was shooting everything from the flowers to the birds and things around. Some of the first things of seeing like the prayer walls and kind of things and stuff like that. That was lots of fun. Just seeing it and seeing people going about their daily experience going to the temples and such was really cool. Although I did
That's
not.
where we went the first day.
Oh,
Did
was
you?
We went, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Like same area or?
I think that was the
Shibuya Shinjuku area.
Yeah.
I think so, because just looking at the pictures is all looking really familiar.
You're like,
from
I've
one of the
seen
first
this.
places we went.
That's funny.
And so yeah, no, it was really pretty. And after that, because the nice thing is also all the shrines and temples, or especially temples, had some of the prettiest trees. Like they're just well maintained, and so many of them in one area that super pretty. And eventually we saw some that just blew my mind for how much was there. But yeah, after the temple,
We went out to lunch, and because I'm like looking at my vlog right now. So my vlog, at some point, you can realize how confused I was when we were going out to lunch. Because I know John was like, "Okay, we're gonna go find a place to eat," and then we were just like walking in like this business district, and like there were like these business buildings and everything, and I had no idea where we were going. And then we walked into what looked like a business building, and I'm like, "Why are we here? Like I thought we were getting lunch." And on the bottom level of that business building, there was a Mexican restaurant called El Torito, and it was just the weirdest thing, because we're like in a business building, and then there's this Mexican restaurant on the bottom level. So
Yep, I remember that.
I remember being super confused about that, and then we sat down, and what did I have? I can't remember what I ordered. I think I ordered like starts with a T. It wasn't a tortilla though. It was like a I don't remember what it was.
tostada or something like that. but-
Tostada, yeah, something like that.
So they had a good, just kind of general Mexican menu that you'd look for anywhere, and the food there, I wonder if I remember correct, was really good.
It was really good, and yeah, it was pretty good. Like I think I had some pico de gallo in there, and it was very fresh. And then they had like a little container of tortillas in there that I could put my stuff on too. And it
Yeah,
was
you
really
kind of
good.
make it your own, like if you wanted almost like a little burrito or taco kind of thing. And part of what I remembered, I want to say that John and I might have gotten margaritas there because we were, as John put it, he's like, "Hey, best thing you can do is day drink." And so, because that first day also, as we were wandering around, was my introduction to one of, I don't know if I'd say his favorite beverages, but one of the ones that a lot of people, especially the airmen in the area, take advantage of, called Strong Zero, which is one of the most vile, like, I don't know. It's one of these drinks, beers, something that I would almost consider what you'd see as like a formaldehyde one or something. It's one that you could get if you got it at like 7-Eleven. It was like $1.50 for a regular can, and a little more if you got a tall boy on it. When we found it, like Don Quixote or something, it was like 99 cents for the small ones and $1.50 for the big ones. But they have a bunch of different flavors, and they're 9% alcohol, essentially, versus normal beer being like, 3.5 to 5 or something. And they're very inexpensive, and so it's kind of your primer drink. It's the thing that a lot of people or a lot of the airmen, especially I saw, would have as they were going out. And so John took advantage of it as well and introduced me to it. And as he put it, because we got tall boys as we were walking around that whole day, you can feel the migraine or tumor building as you're finishing a can. Because I was, one, coming from altitude and going to sea level, essentially drinking, I should have been fine. But after the one tall boy we had, I was feeling it. And at the same time, I felt this little ping in like the top of my skull where you could really say like, oh, so that's where the brain cells are dying. I could feel it right away. But at the same time, such a economical drink in the sense that, as we put it, you wouldn't want to get drunk on those. And John has said that the migraines you get from that are not pleasant because he's done it. But it's something you maybe have one of those and then switch to other alcohol. And one of those will get you like, oh, I'm tipsy. Yeah, this is good. And then after that, you drink whatever. So, because I remember going from that while we were walking around the streets to having like a margarita, I think, when we got the lunch.
You guys, I did check over. You guys did have some margaritas at the Mexican restaurant. And also looking at my vlog, so we started in the Shinjuku area, and then we walked down to Shibuya.
Okay,
But on
that
our
sounds
way,
right.
we ran into Harajuku.
Yes, which unfortunately I don't think any of us really paid attention to until we're there. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, hey.
No, because we saw
street's
this
really
we s-
busy.
Yeah, we saw this
We
narrow
did
road,
too.
and there was like a sea of people, and I'm like, this place looks familiar. I think I've seen pictures, and I'm like, are we in Harajuku?
And it was so random because we weren't even wandering anywhere specific. We were kind of next to a park and kind of making a direction angled down towards as we were going to Shibuya. And just like, yeah, let's go this way.
Well, we made a stop at a convenience store too, because John wanted some more strong zeros.
yeah, we had to
actually.
pick up more.
So
Oof.
yeah, you guys went to pick up some more strong zeros, and we walked out. We went down the street a bit, and then we noticed the Harajuku area,
Yep.
which was just a sea of people.
Which we did wander through. We walked down Harajuku, which was nice, down the main street there. Unfortunately, I didn't research again until later to know, like, what's the big deal there. Or else we probably would have stopped and tried because they are world famous for, like, their crepes.
There was quite a few
yes.
crepe places over there.
Yep, and a few people had asked me after, did you try them? I was like, no. We just kind of wandered through the streets there. I don't know if we actually got anything while we
We
were there.
didn't. We looked inside this. I think. No,
We
was it
didn't
even
we stop at
Harajuku?
like the sex store, or it was like a clothing store that had
I
like
think,
crazy
yeah,
costumes?
that's what we were looking at. Like, it was just really weird. We stepped in there, and I don't know why you guys wanted to. And I'm like, I'm just gonna wait outside. But it was like, I don't know if I want to look like a sketchy person on the side of this kind of store either.
Just waiting outside.
So I walked in, but it was also very narrow
It
as
was
well
tiny.
in there. And I only
Holy
noticed the
cow.
other people that were in that shop were also foreigners, because I didn't actually see any locals that was in that shop.
No, well, but I think Harajuku, for the most part, that
It's all
whole area is a ton of foreigners.
But the sea
'cause
of
you know
people
to go
were
in.
all Asians.
There
so-
was a big variety.
Yeah.
And so, well, there was at least one local there because John and I commented very specifically how this older, what seemed to be British gentleman, had a very attractive young Asian gal, probably Japanese gal, on his arm, walking through that store of very interesting costumes. We're like, wait a second. But anyhow, it was kind of just randomness, like
Yeah.
what caught our eye.
And I know when we were still going to Shibuya, I believe someone, Wayne or John, really had to use the bathroom, but it was really hard to find a place for a bathroom out there.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
ended up having to stop by in a Hawaiian restaurant.
Yep, we stopped by restaurants so
and-
we could pee.
Yeah, and we were not sure. We would probably have to pay or something while we were over there as well. So we sat down, we ordered some things. They had a cherry blossom burger that was really tempting, but we had kind of just
We had
recently
just
had
eaten
lunch.
or something, and so we.
It was like an hour after we had food at the El Torito, and
so we weren't actually hungry. But God, it smelled great.
That's too bad.
So Wayne and I ordered. So John ordered a yogurt dish, kind of like a dessert, and then Wayne and I ordered some mango pancakes that we shared together that were really good. Like,
Yeah,
so there
they
were
were.
pancakes, and there was powdered sugar on the top with like they used a stencil that looked like a Hawaiian turtle, and then they had mango preserves or something on the side that we had together with it. So that was pretty good. But I really wanted the cherry blossom burger, but we had just eaten lunch.
I
so-
couldn't have done it. As
Yeah.
much as I ate my butt off while in Japan, that would have been too much. And I walked a ton and was hungry when I was hungry, which is good because mostly consumed all our food. Because again, one of the things in Japan, for those who haven't traveled, is no doggy bags. Eat your food and leave. You don't take it to go unless it's ordered to go, and the places that do
yeah,
that.
there are some restaurants that do say we offer takeout, or not takeout, but like
Actually,
carry out. Yeah, like when you can't finish your food, they offer
They
the
do
option.
actually
of-
have it.
There were some restaurants that would say that, but they were typically
had to
restaurants that were
specify.
catered to foreigners.
That would make sense because some of the food, and it's interesting, I mean, you'll get a decent portion size. It's not like they're skimping on the portion size. The difference in the food, because you'll hear that from a lot of people, is they make an assumption that, all the portions are tiny. And so you'll never get full. That's not the case. The portions are robust.
Yeah.
The difference is the kind of food. Where, and John suffered this a lot, he's like, you'll eat a full meal and have consumed a lot of food, but it's not as heavy as most like American dinners and dishes and stuff like that. So while you may consume a large amount of food, you won't feel like you're just weighted down and necessarily like gorged full. And so if you're used to that and used to being satiated to a point where you're ready to pass out, you may not experience it and therefore feel like, you maybe want to eat again sooner than you would otherwise. You may not feel just as full as you might otherwise. And so you actually do eat a good portion size to a point where there was a couple times I kind of was like, ooh, gotta finish this. This is really tasty, but man, there's a lot. Whew, gotta finish it. And especially with dishes that didn't have rice. Because rice will fill you up a little better, but dishes that were mostly vegetables with some meat and stuff like that, or soup types, you'd eat a lot, but it wouldn't, like I said, you wouldn't get that heavy, full feeling. But yeah, so we didn't get to eat there. I would go back to that restaurant.
Yeah, I really wanted to try the Cherry Blossom Burger, but yeah, I don't think we did much after that. We walked around in Shibuya for a bit, but I don't think we really did anything. We visited a couple arcades, I think.
Yeah, some of the first kind of arcades we ran into.
And then after that, to finish off the day, the sun started going down, and John wanted us to take us to a place called the Fight Club or something, where people pretty much just would fight each other in a boxing ring or something.
It's a bar that he's gone to multiple times that has a ring in it that anyone can choose to fight in. And so he wanted to show us where it was. It was too early for it to really be going at that point.
That was when the sun was still setting. It was pretty much gone, but it was still too early. Like the bars I've noticed, or the nightlife in Japan that I've noticed, pretty much start at 10 p.m.
It really is kicking later, and goes late. And so we didn't, that first time we didn't really experience any of the nightlife. And at whatever point we kind of decided, all right, we should head back.
It started raining when we got to the Fight Club. We went inside to check it out, and we came back out, and I realized I forgot to bring my umbrella along with me. So we didn't have an umbrella. So from here is the story where I was about to die. So
well, okay, we'll start this with, it was raining, and initially at first it was a light rain, and it was kind of like, oh, this is nice, right? This is not big. And we were walking up the streets a little ways, and it was kind of well, let's see what this is about, right? Or I have no idea. So for those who know, I cracked a bottle of strawberry milk liqueur. That is, I have nothing beyond that.
That's strawberry and milk and liqueur.
Oh, God.
So it's a tasting that we're doing here.
It's good, and then it gets really bitter.
I'm confused by it.
It's good, and it's not all in one. Like, you have different phases.
The aftertaste is like strawberry milk, but like you could get the bitterness of liquor in there for sure.
Oh man, I like that.
It is.
It is smooth. So for those who don't know, Amy, who is not a drinker,
by the way, this isn't wine. This is actually sparkling grape juice.
Yeah, just grape juice. She's not a drinker, but she'll taste drinks just to kind of see what they're about, and tends to dislike all of them because you can taste the alcohol. Actually, that's not bad at all. That's
what? The grape juice?
And so that's actually kind of nice. It's smooth. But so the Fight Club was funny. Before we go there, just as I see the IRC comment about it, it was a ring in there, like in kind of a fenced-in ring kind of thing.
It wasn't an actual like platform, separate platform. They just pretty much just had like
walled
ring
off,
fencing,
kind of like with a net or fence or something. I forget.
Yeah.
An area that you could go in and fight. And John told us stories of going in there and watching people just drink and watch people go at it. Very amateur-like, although there's also kind of a training area behind that with boxing, kind of like heavy bags and some other stuff where people were training as we were just kind of looking. And he said he's seen some cool fights in there and such. So he kept saying he wanted Amy to go in there and fight somebody, like grab some random girl off the street and say, "Go fight." Well,
eventually he said, "I want you to take my wife in there and fight her."
Yeah, he did actually push to have Tanya fight you as well. He wanted to see you fight somebody. I think that was the key.
Yeah.
He just was really curious to see that. Anyhow, so that was the Fight Club.
On our way out, we were thinking on ways to get home. So we could have taken a train to a train station where we'd have to transfer.
Yeah, because we wandered a long way and we weren't really on the path that we knew.
Or we could have just like walked to the main train station so we wouldn't have to transfer. And I thought, to save a little bit of the money that we had, we thought maybe it'd be better if we just walked to the train station, the main one, because I was okay with walking. I was fine. The only thing is that a lot of the balls on my feet were hurting from my heels, but other than that, everything was fine.
We've been walking all day, but
we had been walking all day, and then the rain started getting a little harder, and then at some point we ended up getting drenched, and we got lost in this really big park down there, and we couldn't figure out how to get out, and a lot of places were fenced off because they were closing the park down, but there was still some kind of party or something going on in there, so there were still people coming in, but we just couldn't find a way out.
We our beacon that we were trying to get around, because we weren't really using a map, and normally when we were traveling with John, he was very much like, no, it's this way, and just wander. Later, come to realize that John's internal GPS only really works when he's drunk. Because most of the places he's traveled was while he was drinking. And we ran into that later. But so we're walking, we kind of got into this park, and he's like, we saw this tall building. Was like, well, the station we're trying to get to is just on the other side of that building. And so we used that as our beacon. Problem is, we went into this park, and we were kind of like lost track of it a little bit. We're just heading straight direction, like, can we get through this? In the pouring rain. To the point where we kind of got close, but we said, like, okay, we need to exit somewhere over here. We said, there's got to be an exit, right? Got to be an exit. Nope, just fence. Because on the other side is just road. We're like, well, shoot. Okay, so we're following kind of the fence and through the park and this and that and bike trails and various other things to get out. And again, it kept happening. We were like, there's no way out of this park. What are we doing? We need to get out of here.
Yeah, at this point, though, the rain kind of like simmered out. Like
it let off. We were just wet.
Yeah, we were just wet. And I know we were wandering around long enough to the point where my hair had completely dried and it was super curly for the Asian that I am. Our clothes were super soaked, but my hair was dry at this point. I think we were wandering around for like 2 hours. It felt like 2 hours.
It was longer than it needed to be, and it was a further walk than we expected. Eventually found a way out of the park down by like a little parking lot thing. We're like, screw it, let's go. Beelined it out.
And we had to walk a little longer to the station. At which point, though, I was just drenched, and I was like this weird girl with curly, wettish hair, and I was soaking wet.
We were drenched. But the fun thing was that also led to my first experience for real with like the vending machines that are everywhere in Japan, which is awesome in a weird way that if you're from like America, it makes no sense because there's vending machines on the streets everywhere. Even in back alleys between like houses, which is where we found ourselves. And we were cold, it was wet, and there was a hot vending machine.
Well, the vending machines have both options. They have cool drinks and hot drinks. So typically underneath the drink listing, they'll have a blue or a red little tab on there that'll tell you if it's warm
blue
or cold.
Being cold and red being hot drinks.
And they'll change it seasonally, actually. So during the summer, they'll have the hot options go way down to, just a handful because you might want some coffee. But in the winter, you'll have mostly hot options, and they'll just change it depending on the season.
That's cool. That's cool. And for us, it saved us because I think we all got hot chocolates.
We all got hot chocolates.
Because I don't think any of us are really coffee drinkers that were there.
Nope.
Although they have a lot of those options. And so we got hot chocolate and came out in basically little cans that are really warm. You get them and they are hot. They
apparently they were hot.
Well, because there's enough so you could hold on to it. We did for a little while, all of us. Like, this is nice.
When I held on to it, though, it was just a bit warm. So I think that's how bad my frostbite got. Because by the time we got back to the apartment, I took a warm shower, but it took the longest time before my toes stopped getting that burning sensation of like warm water on cold toes. So I apparently had frostbite, and I was pretty close to getting terrible frostbite or something.
You're all right. That's just wake you up the next time and remind you. But no, it was definitely cold and wet that night. It was an adventure. We definitely had an adventure. Memories from that. But we got back safe eventually, and by the time I think we got done with that, we were done. We were ready to go to bed at that point.
We're already at the halfway point, and that was only our second day, guys.
Wow.
That was only our second day.
We're going to have to get to like impressions and such. So thank you for pointing that out. We're going to take a break. And after the break, we'll continue discussions about Japan. Please consider continuing the IRC. Send us some questions. Let us know what you're doing. Or email in at showx@v2wproductions.com and let us know any questions you have for the trip. And just we'll try to regale. Going into the break, I need to double check to see if I actually put music in the break. I did not. So in a second here, we'll do a break. I would like, as I get this set up, could Ondine and Matt, you talk through a little bit of what you're seeing on the table in front of you of all the various snacks I brought back.
You can also hold them up to the camera if you want to.
You can just gotta pick them up and talk through them.
So
because it's like a brought to you by portion.
Whatever the hell we just got.
I can read some of them.
So these are my favorite. They're milk caramel. And when we were in Japan, they love limited time things, but so these are little, almost like bouillon cube type. They're small little cubes of caramel, but they're milk caramel. I love them a lot. But so when we were in Japan, they actually had, it was an anniversary, I think. What was it, like 20, 30 years?
Yeah.
In business. And so they did limited time milk caramel drinks. And so for the past few years,
They were in all the vending machines.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
So, of course, this was 8 years ago, so it's been a while. And we had been searching for it at, like...
everywhere.
yeah, any local, like, Asian shops or that sort of thing. Couldn't find it and finally found out that it was the limited time offer.
But those are one of my favorites. They're really great caramel candies.
We also have here
Calabi.
barbecue aji. So we've got a barbecue flavored.
Kind of like cracker chips or something like
yeah,
that.
cracker
Oh,
chips.
crackers. Calabi is like, if anyone has watched the anime Umaru, she'll always have this company, chips, with her. So Calabi is practically a chip kind of company, a cracker chip company. They sell pretty good stuff. We have this Ampaman, which is like a little kids anime, caramel corn. That's typically for little kids. That's pretty good. We have sake flavored Kit Kat.
Kats.
They're really tasty.
Kit Kats, we noticed when we were in Japan anyway, Kit Kat did a lot of really interesting different kinds of flavors and styles. And
Yeah, we had the sakura flavored ones, right?
Sakura and kinako, which is soybean powder.
Okay, because those ones I wasn't as big a fan
I like
of.
the
They were different. They were interesting.
Did
For
they
me-
have a matcha?
They did have a matcha one. I did buy one. So they had a green tea flavored
Yeah,
Kit
so
Kat.
I've had those before, and I actually kind of like them, but I can't have them in quantity.
Okay.
So in a way, it's interesting because I can't binge eat those. I can have one or two, and then I'm like, I'm
They
good.
get a bit bitter after a while. It's like alcohol for me.
Well, then we've got natto. What is this?
Shio
This
flavored.
isn't actually natto.
Natto crackers.
Oh, they're
so
natto
they're
crackers.
dried soybeans. So natto is fermented soybeans that a lot of people. It's a hit or miss with people. Apparently the smell is
Watching
really
someone
gross.
eat them is not pleasant.
I wanted
sticky,
to
stringy.
like them
Yeah.
more.
So,
I can't stand
Amy
them.
likes them.
I wanted Wayne to try some natto, so he decided to get this dried natto crackers.
I figured that would be
that
my
are,
intro.
There we
soy
go.
sauce flavored. But so they're dried off, so they won't be very stringy or sticky. And I don't know how the smell will be, but I guess we'll have to find
see.
that out.
We're going to
And
they
they
do a
would
tasting
often
throughout the end of this
serve it
afterwards
with,
as
like,
we
a
do some
little
other
bit of
stuff. But
mustard.
yeah, I got some avocado and cheese chips. Got some.
Oh, yeah.
What are these ones? These
Oh,
are
those
like
are the,
udon noodle chips or something. Or
Gel.
They are the
Oh no.
Jello in a pouch.
Dodekai. So they're ramen noodle crackers.
no idea the flavor. Hopefully they're not fishy, but
Jinaji. Yeah.
because a lot of things are fishy. I found out I
So,
still don't like fish.
Chicken
cakes.
flavored. These are chicken flavored.
Sweet.
Chicken
beef.
flavored ramen crackers.
One thing you'll notice, that's one thing that started to drive us up a wall a little bit. But it's
don't
kind of
keep
nice.
those
Everything's
inside.
individually packaged.
Yeah.
There's plastic and plastic and plastic.
So it's funny because as much as Japan is so big on like keeping things less like economical and stuff, and so many things they have, yes, their packaging's ridiculous to me.
And one thing that a friend had brought up to me, typically, at least in Japan, for foods, they will have a picture of the food or the flavor of the item that they have. But back in America, if they came to America, we don't have that option.
No, we don't.
So when they would come to America and they'd see the Gerber Company logo, which is a baby, they'd be like, they're eating a baby. Like, apparently that was a problem with some Asians that came by, and they're like, why is there a picture of a baby on here?
I was thinking
Which I
about
thought
that
would
the
have
other
been,
day.
yeah, it would have been like self-explanatory, but I guess they just aren't used to it, so they just couldn't figure it out that
Interesting.
quickly.
No, I can see that. All right. But yeah, and we have some other candies and stuff. There's some pretzel chips
We'll show it later,
and
yeah.
such and things, but we're gonna jump on a break real quick. Play a quick. It'll be a short break, just a quick song, so people can run and refresh as they need. And we'll be right back with more from our trip in Japan. And so, please let us know what you think. And if you have any questions, we'll be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx@vtwproductions.com. to Show X on btwproductions.com.
That's
Hey everybody, we're back. Amy's run up to get some more water. I cracked the choya, which is basically plum wine. That is an aged version, 3 years aged, which normally here in the States you only get like just basic choya in the bottle that has the plums in it that you can see. That's got a very different taste to it.
Oh, that's good.
I like it, but it's like
very good.
it's a different taste.
I'm gonna miss the chair again.
Definitely a sipping drink.
Yeah, that is. I mean, definitely. It doesn't need. I mean, it's a
I
plum
do
wine.
smell the plum.
But that's different because normally plum wine I can kind of just down like no big deal, and that's like
Very
you want to
contemplative.
savor it. That's
yeah.
something you definitely want to spend some time on. You don't want to just like down that. That would be a waste
That is
to
good.
just.
I don't really taste that.
That would be a waste to just chug. No, that's one that you want to sip and enjoy each like a little bit in your mouth and such. And so this is why these things are wasted on you.
You'll understand when you're older.
Dang.
Yeah, that one's very contemplative.
Wow. This is also why I got this one because it's a known brand, but I've never seen other versions of choya in the U.S. I've only ever seen the generic plum wine that you can get.
And this is aged 3 years, apparently.
Yeah, so I wanted to try that one. That's I like that. All right, checking. I don't think we've gotten any more emails in or anything, so no one asking us specific questions. Since we went through just a day or two real quick, like it took forever, I will note that if people followed our daily blogs, you'll get a little more in-depth or like specifics on what we were doing different days while we were there. You can check out our YouTube channels for that. Mine under Doc Dead and yours under Melon Dreams
Cosplay.
Melon Dreams Cosplay. Yes. To find more of our daily looks at such. I think it would be important for us to kind of just talk about more impressions and other things that had format from it, because some of the other things we did in general, we went to, and my pronunciation for everything is horrible. Everyone will know this. I don't take the time to make my mouth move enough to actually get my mouth around the right syllables. But when we went to Akihabara, see, that it's kind of famous for being the electronics district in Japan. We spent a day walking around there, and probably a place that would have been interesting more in the evening. During the day, it's much more go shopping for electronics, as well as we spent some time in arcades there and stuff like that, walking around, which also gave me the impression, or solidified my thought, that arcades in Japan are very much the same, no matter which ones you go to.
Yeah.
They may have more of the same things or bigger of the same things, but they all have essentially UFO machines or whatever the machines where
Brain
you
machines.
can capture or get some kind of like item or toy or something out of it, candy in some cases.
Could you get a pet rhinoceros beetle out of yours?
No.
That's the great thing about living out in the country when you go to an arcade.
Sorry for that call.
You get rhinoceros beetles out of the UFO machine?
So they have these like mini plastic terrariums, and you can
Oh my goodness.
and it's not that you're gonna drop the beetle. Like they have it set up where it's a kinder version of it, but you could actually get a little pet rhinoceros beetle.
Did
No.
you use the Gundam one though? Because when at the time we were there, I don't know if they've discontinued them or not, but they were Gundam pods. So you'd get into a full pod and you have all these controls.
So I didn't use those. I did see them. Because the problem is, for the actual arcade, like traditional video games, so gaming show, video game stuff that they had there, most of the video games are so much further in depth than what we see in an arcade. In an arcade for the US, you might have a handful of buttons and a joystick, and that's it, right? And you're pretty much playing the game. There were several of these that had touch screens, that a lot of them have a lot of options where you need to be able to read. You need to be able to read the Japanese to be able to understand it, because some of them are card-based games, so they manipulate or blended in action with being able to use booster cards or other things to do abilities and such. A lot of them, like the Gundam games I did see that had multiple controls, was a joystick and throttle kind of thing, and you're not just like running up and down shooting. You're bouncing around, changing modes, flying through, targeting, fighting, shooting, all these things at once, where it's like, I might be able to fumble through this, but I will not understand what the heck I'm doing.
I love those in Japan. Whenever we would go to the mall, which was about a 10-minute, well, no, it was a half-hour bus ride.
Okay.
I'd usually go play the Gundam games. You have your foot pedals, you have your controls, and
The full like simulation style, like I didn't see those much. They did have some pods, and the ones I saw were ones I've seen here actually. Some like Star Wars ones, some other ones. But they had so many cool games. The ones I played the majority of, I played Tekken 7 because I love Tekken, and it's not available in the U.S. yet, so Tekken 7. And I played Initial D, the racing games, because racing, Initial D, what? Which I've played here before as well, and they're just same versions kind of thing, but they're fun. And the UFO games to a degree, where I at least won one thing. I got a Trunks model out of one.
Nice.
Amy, you won just the one, the plushie, or out of the UFO you played?
I just won the plush, but I was close to winning another. I just didn't have any more money.
Well, they're so frustrating in the way the games play because you will not win on a single 100 yen play or whatever, a single dollar play. They require probably $4 or $5 at least if you're hitting it just right. Because one thing they do is they get you right on the edge where it looks like you could win it pretty easily. But then you have to, you move it a little bit, and you have to find the right angle and see which side of the little arm is stronger, and try to rotate a thing off until it's either on the boxes between the two little poles or whatever that it's sitting on, so that it'll fall into the win area, or in the plushies, and a lot of them they have a little ring on top that's sitting on the edge of the little pole, and you'd have to move it off, but it's kind of sticky, so it's not like you just slide it right off. You'd move the angle a little bit, and then a little bit the other direction, or so. You had to figure out the best way to knock them off. So it's kind of tough. And the other challenge is, it's not like a lot of the US ones where they just leave it there and eventually somebody's going to win. As soon as you walk away from the machine for any length of time, an attendant will come, open up the machine, and reset it. And so it's basically, you need to play till you win, or that's it, right? Whoever's next got to start over.
Sometimes, though, that is a little helpful, because there were times when my sister and I would screw it up so much where we were just we just need to reset this mode or whatever, reset this game. So we would walk away and wait till a worker would come by and reset it, and we'd be like, now we can play it again. Because we would screw it up to the point where we're like,
that didn't work.
We need to start all over again.
But it's good to note, because it's one of those things that, as Amy saved me, because I was getting frustrated on this Trunks statue, that I was getting ready to walk away, and she's like, if you walk away, that's it, they're going to reset it. And that was my first one. I was like, what? So she played a couple times and actually showed me where the next step of how to get it done. I was like, oh. At which point I went back to it and spent maybe 200 more yen and was able to win it. So I invested probably $8 on that. And thank you, Amy, for the additional $2 she threw into it as well. But those games are it was fun. But the other thing is, no matter which arcade you go to, they kind of have the same style of games, what's popular at the time, as well as a lot of the same kind of things you can win out of the UFO machines.
Except for rhinoceros beetles.
Except for if you're in the country and get live animals. And so, which we did not see in town. But other than that, Akihabara.
Akihabara. You don't roll your R's.
I can't stop. But they, again, there's a bunch of electronics, little stuff. If you were going there looking for little knickknacks, cords, things like that, it'd be great. They did have a massive store that we went into that had it was a huge department store kind of thing, multiple levels, that had every kind of electronics you'd want to buy. If people saw my stream, that's where I posted pictures of the Technics 1200 thing there for $4,000, I want to say. It was 430,000 yen or something like that. It's the new Technics with the copper plate. Oh, it's so good. But actually seeing it in a store was kind of cool. And I probably could have spent a day there if I was just shopping and just spending time looking at every little knickknack I could. Also in that area, we saw a bunch of the themed cafes, though we didn't partake of any. There were several maids out kind of advertising.
There
we did see the one gal carrying an owl after we just looked up that you could go dine in an owl cafe. We did see around us there were several cat cafes and things like that, but we didn't try any of them out. I know that's going to make Copy and others like that sad that we didn't, go dine with cats, but we were just doing other things. And so that didn't kind of really kick in for us.
I know. Akihabara is also a big place for anime and stuff, so there was an anime store down there that we also went to visit called Animate. I don't think I didn't end up buying anything from there. I don't know if Wayne did. There were things where I was tempted, but I never did. And the anime stores there are huge. They've got 7-8 floors to the building, and each floor is a different thing. So the bottom floor would be typical things. Later in the floors, you'll probably get the mystery boxes, and they'll typically have it organized by anime. And then there's a specific floor that have the the books. There's another floor that's got the yaoi and the yuri and the hentai, and then you just like each floor has their own specific thing. But yeah, definitely the anime stores in Japan are a lot bigger, considering that they have a lot of different floors to them, which is pretty fun.
Loved it because it was like it's like a fandom of floor. If you're into Gundam models, there's an entire floor of them. If you're into figure collecting, an entire floor. It's just a lot of amazing things.
And they do definitely separate things out to kind of like whatever it is they're themed after, whatever it is they're doing, and just massive amounts of it. Unfortunately, during that, the audio just like freaked out, and so I may have to restart Sam. Thankfully, the video stream is going just fine. So check out, if you're on the YouTube, you should be hearing us no problem. Whereas our friend Sam is like choking and dying. So I turned off the background music, and now you just hear our lovely voices. So deal with it. Yeah, sorry.
And any crunching from snacks.
Well, and we did, the stores that were interesting, I did make a point of later, almost at the end of the trip, going to the headquarters for Animate, which was down in
Ikebukuro.
Yes. And that it was funny because they had a store, or they have like a little cafe out front that's famous that has a bus kind of thing or whatever. And
I'm trying to ship myself.
What are you doing, woman?
My chair got stuck in the crack. I'm sorry.
Oh, geez, you in the crack. But that one, the big one, had a lot. Like, they had more manga that I could really pay attention to. And they definitely had an entire floor of yaoi.
And yuri and hentai.
And yuri
it's not
and
just
hentai.
yaoi.
There was a lot of yaoi.
There's a lot of yuri
floors.
there, too.
There was a little section of specific yuri, which I was like, hey, thank you,
There
at
were
least.
sections of hentai, too.
I was very tempted to get that. I did not go into the hentai section. Nope. That's scary. But
They had the big 18 plus.
yes,
They have like the big old
curtain.
There actually wasn't curtain. It was just like off to the side, but it was a separated section.
There was one that wasn't curtained, but like there was a bookshelf that kind of like was in the center, technically like on the center side
Yeah,
of
it's
the
kind
room.
of separating the two.
But that one was the one in Akihabara. The one in Ikebukuro, actually, there was just a corner where the hentais were, and there was actually, I think, a big banner that was a hentai picture, and we're like, all right, like that's a little obvious.
It was
the hentai.
yeah, it was definitely like here, tentacles here.
But like
if
they
you're
didn't have
curious.
that closed off or hidden away at all.
No, it was just you went up the stairs or whatever, and it was like, oh, so if I turn left, tentacles. Turn right, not so much. So, but they also had, it was cool, is they had a lot of like little knickknacks and such. In fact,
Like the mystery boxes and stuff.
I got things. So for you
Thank you.
and for you,
Thank you.
because they actually have little like knickknacks and like anime themed things that you could get throughout, depending on what's popular. And that's kind of the key piece. It depends on what's popular, because Japan is very much about keeping up with what's new and not you have to go look for old stuff. You have to go to very specific stores and things to find things that are old.
In fact, we actually
and
went to
collectibles.
Nakano Broadway, where they had
Yes.
the collectible area, where they had
whole
the older
floor
stuff.
of basically Mandrake, which had all the old toys that I was so like, oh, I want everything here. But in Animate, they had, in this case, I got some Tales of Zestiria. I don't even know what I'd call those. Not badges.
They're acrylic keychains.
So bigger keychain type things for the group that we're working on. And if you're watching it, one of the things that Ondine's doing right now is she's actually sewing, I believe,
Yep.
one of the costumes. And this one is this hides, or is this
No, it's
This is
Hannah's.
for Hannah's.
That's
So
Hannah's?
this is for Lila.
from Tales of Zestiria?
Yeah, and I'm hand sewing a little trim on it because I decided that the satin stitch that I did on it was too boring. So I made more work for myself.
So for those who don't know, Ondine's doing the whole Masters, not just like doing a little bit of like, oh, let me put a costume into the Masters edition when we go to A-Kon here in a month or so, but
There were too many costumes I wanted to make from Tales
So
of
instead, we
Zestiria.
have now a full group of six of
people.
us that Ondine is making all of the costumes for. Not just one, and we're not responsible for making any of them ourselves. We're just the models.
I just got carried away.
So she's going to be presenting in the Masters Edition a full group cosplay that she did everything for because she's insane, and we love her. So every moment of every day she is working on this, including during the show right now, to get it done in time.
Last year she did the same sort of thing at Christmas and holidays. She's just sitting there,
just sewing in the background, just working on
Some
stuff.
people do knitting. She sews costumes.
Yes, so that is how far you can get when you get into the cosplay world.
That's right.
But yeah, no.
Fell into the deep end.
Animate was tons of fun. I could have probably spent more time there. I picked up several little just random gifts for people from there. And it's one of those places, if you are into anime at all, especially current things, you would go nuts in that store. You really would lose your stuff in that store. There's a ton of just little random things to play with. I picked up an Iron-Blooded Orphans banner thing. That's just
Sorry.
yeah. Another thing I got her was a little Studio Ghibli style washcloth that was in the local Seiyu or such. But because the stuff at Ghibli when we went to the museum was cool, but
expensive.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! Thank goodness so much of Japan, especially in Fusa, they had Ghibli stuff to play with. So I got myself one, Totoro one as well.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I was just like, nope, not buying anything from here. Ridiculous. God, they had cool, models of some of the I don't even think we talked enough about that experience because we went to the museum there. It's right outside of Mitaka. Yeah, Mitaka. That beautiful place we went there because that was our first real little pond or lake kind of area where we got to see all the little paddle boats and stuff. That again, the biggest thing for me as an impression of Japan as a whole was that it confirmed so many of the things I see in anime. Because, of course, go figure, right? They're writing stories based on their culture. It's Japan. It's what they live every day. So the things they include are just out of everyday life. Where from an American perspective, for me at least, it was very much this seems kind of romanticized in a lot of ways. For me, it was everything from the apartments. Just seeing the shape and look of apartments and yep. What you see in anime is exactly what you're seeing. Now, granted, most anime I see tend to be more, not rural, but smaller city, not Tokyo all the time. Mm-hmm. I think Amy pointed out several times to me that made a lot of sense in Durarara, that takes place in
Ikebukuro,
which we went to, and it really does. I mean, that one does a great job of showing what that city feel is like, and it's everywhere. I mean, admittedly, because of that damn anime, I looked at every "Do Not Enter" sign that I went everywhere on the streets. I just looked at
Shizuo.
You need to pick this up and smack someone with this. Every time.
I think the same thing when I look at it. I look at it and I'm like, Shizuo, I wish he was here.
Yeah, no.
Did you wish you could find Simon's little sushi shop?
Right.
I know, right? I just I want to find a big Russian, black Russian out front, selling.
I know.
Human
when
sushi,
he
not even
sees
on half off days.
his broken Japanese, be like, oh, Shizuo.
But it really does take a lot of those if you're into anime, and it brings it to life in a sense that you get a better sense of this is real. This is every day. And that was really cool for me. Just seeing it brought to life around me, just how this is everyday life. What other... I forget my train of thought after that one, but that was a big thing from the anime perspective. And it just felt more real. That while these are fanciful stories, the environment where it takes place is all much more grounded once you've been to Japan. And that was really neat. I did say before that after going to the museum, I need to go back through and actually watch all of the Ghibli stuff, all the old stuff that I've never seen, that I take for granted. I looked through and was like, there's a lot. Because I think I'm like many Americans that have only really partaken of the stuff that's come over and been shown here as big titles. And so there's things I'd never even heard of. And just going through the museum was like, wow, look at all these things.
I'm actually surprised because I know quite a bit of people that say they've watched many Studio Ghibli movies and like pretty much all of them. But the one that I remember as a kid that I never really watched myself just because I have swinophobia was this movie called Pokoroso, which is about this. It's about this war fighters. I don't know which war he was fighting in, but
so it was originally, it has flashbacks to World War One.
Okay,
but it takes place after.
So it's about this guy who fought in the war who was cursed by a witch, I think, that was turned into a pig. which is why I couldn't watch it, was because he was a pig throughout the whole movie. And a lot of people that watch the Ghibli movies had always like said they've watched almost all the movies, and then I bring this one up and they had never heard of it before.
It's my
I
dad's
was included.
favorite movie ever.
It's my nightmare movie.
Well, and I'm included. I had never seen it, and they actually had a lot of it at the museum to be seen. Where I was
Yeah.
like, "What is this?" As well as,
good.
and they changed out some of the exhibits. We did go sit in the cat bus, right?
Yeah.
We did see the cat bus that the kids got to climb all over.
But
and
that
stuff.
cat bus was unreal. So the one that we could sit in, you would sit on it, but it didn't feel like you were sitting on a cushiony couch. Like it felt like you were sitting on actual animal flesh. Like it was like the weirdest thing. I don't know how to explain
Super
it.
cushy.
But you would sit on it and it felt like you were sitting on something that was alive, let alone someone had just gotten off of that seat too, so it was
warm.
also warm. But like it didn't feel like a cushiony couch. Like it felt like you were sitting on something that was living, and it was just like the weirdest thing ever.
Well, that and they had like the statue of the robot at the top, which another one I haven't seen.
yeah.
That's
Right,
famous
yeah.
as all get out, and other people I've mentioned to were like, "Oh yeah, it's this guy," and I was like, "Sure."
There was this character that we were seeing around the museum too that kind of looked like a messed up Moogle. It was like this white kind of like person kind of figure with an apple for a nose, and we eventually found out that it was from a story called Leaven Bread and the Egg Princess. Yeah, the egg princess or egg queen or something like that. It was I can't remember what the bread one part was. It was something pan to tamago hime. So that one was really interesting. I haven't actually seen that before, but
haven't either.
I haven't heard of that one before. But it seems very interesting because it's about 11 bread, and then an egg princess.
Yeah, it was such a cool experience, and it was a whole showcase of animation and how you go about animation. Because one of the things that the studio is really famous for is how well they capture motion, and really like that in-depth home feel. Because when I went back and I got to see my neighbor Totoro again in theater, you notice so much more on a big screen. Just if you ever have the opportunity, please go see it. And his movies, the studio's movies are just amazing for capturing the kind of this feel of everyday life. And we got to go into the theater and watch a not released film, I guess, is how that works, a little 20-minute short.
So which one did you guys have?
We got to see, it was a story, I don't know the name of it, but it was a story of a water spider and a basically water mosquito that meet each other, and kind of is a lot about the water spiders' kind of life underneath and avoiding like bigger fish and things underwater and stuff like that. It was super cute, kind of thing. I want to say it was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was just neat. And it was funny, they filled that theater because we got in there and they had, this is the day we met up with Casey and Loy, who had gone and done like Kyoto and all this other stuff, Togakure and such. But we were sitting on like the steps in between some of the seats because they were just like, nope, sit down. And it was such a cool little theater, like the way even the windows closed and everything. And it was so cute. That was such a fun little experience.
Yeah. They really make it an experience. Everything that you do in that museum is not just going and looking at things. You
get to touch and feel, and you get the sense like they have kind of a mock-up of what the old studio must have looked like when we first created. And what I loved was seeing all the reference material they had in there, because they showed a thing about architecture and just all these books on architecture of different time frames and areas and things like trains and stuff, which is big to me because almost every movie I've watched where there's family life and things happening, someone's taking a train somewhere. And so just all the things about how trains look and move and stuff like that too. And an area that was focused specifically on like motion. They showed like a video rotating of horses running and like cutouts of a dog running in a race and stuff, so they could capture how you animate things moving and such. And I was just like, this is amazing.
And that's one of the really neat things in particular about Japanese animation is because it's all drawn to a certain extent or another, everything in there has to be put there for a reason. So if you take a video of a dog running and use it for a film, okay, the dog's, there's lots of going on, but the dog's running. Whereas if you have to animate it, you have to put in all those muscles, all the movement,
the way the paws impact the ground, the angle of the body, just all those little details. Well, and the other thing they showed is a lot of their animation, I don't know if it's still this way, but it's multiple layers. Because they're animating everything from the background to the things in the middle ground and stuff like that. Some of these animations could be 7 layers deep to show what's going on in the scene. And I was like, wow. Another thing I saw, that's what I was trying to remember. We saw clips of things that look like additional stories about like Totoro and other things that I have never seen.
Well, there was May and the Kitten Bus was the little movie that they had in the theater when we went. So there's like clips from that I
We
know that
saw a
they'll
ton
show.
of other stuff with like the cat bus running around doing things that we'd never seen and stuff where I was like, this is not in the movie. where is this? I want part 2.
Yeah.
Right? I want more. And so there were a lot of things that are just amazing. All right, what other stuff? So that was Studio Ghibli. It's one of those things. If you
Yeah.
are in the area, you go. You know, for any of us who love animation, love anime, anything like that, you go to that because it's like a $10 ticket.
And definitely
It's-
plan ahead though, because it's a $10 ticket, but they sell out months in advance.
Yeah, and we were very fortunate because Casey Lloyd, big shout out to them. They were able to acquire the tickets. There was some site they found that a month early they released a few tickets, and were able to do that.
So the movie about the leaven bread though that I found, it's so the full title is Pandane to Tamago Hime. So yeah, leaven bread and the egg princess.
Gotcha.
So that's one that I haven't seen before, but
To look that up.
let's see with the leaven bread.
Well, and that was the big takeaway I had from that. There was so much more animation that's come out of that studio, even stuff that was before it was called Studio Ghibli, that I need to go find and watch because it's all of the same feel and quality. I just have never seen it, and I took a quick picture of just even at the Seiyu, which is essentially like Walmart, same company, that they had on the DVD rack just like all these different movies of theirs. I was like, I have not seen that one, or that. I was like, damn, I am terrible. And so there's a lot of watching I need to do. So that was there. What other things? We went to the ramen museum with Casey and Lloyd, which was a lot of fun. From the outside, it seems like nothing. It's just a top. It's got like, outside they have the dipping ramen thing, animated statue, and then you go in there and on the top floor it's just like a quick history of ramen, some of the tools used, and like gift shop and kind of thing. And I was like, really, is this it? And then you go downstairs, and it opens up to what's at least a 3-story kind of open, what looks like just a little
Village.
old city or village thing where it's got these tiny narrow little hallways, walk around these 2 levels of shops. Upstairs is walk around the outside, downstairs kind of plaza. And
it kind of looked like the bar district.
yeah, just really narrow, right?
Yeah.
Really tiny, but they're just ramen restaurants.
So
And I
cool.
forget how many they had in there. There's at least 9, but I think it was more than that.
No, I think there was 9 to 11 maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Ramen restaurants where they had a style of ramen, each one, and
It was, so there was a map when we first got in there, and they were numbered, and it was telling each number was a ramen made from different places in Japan. Where one I remember was specifically made from my mom's hometown of Kumamoto, and we were going to look for that restaurant. We ended up not finding it till after we had eaten.
Yeah.
But we had the little pamphlet that when we went to a restaurant, I think we were like restaurant number 6 or whatever.
I think that's when we did.
Yeah, we looked at the pamphlet and we were like, which one is number 6? And we're like, oh, it's the ramen from this place or whatever. So we ended up eating there. But they had choices of where the numbers of which ramen was from where and which restaurant you wanted to go to experience the taste of those.
And so you could go around and find that restaurant. We chose somewhat by who wasn't packed.
Yeah.
There were a couple lines out, a few of them. Ended up in this little corner one. All of them had the old style machine out front where you would take your yen, put it in, choose your selection of what you wanted to eat, what you wanted to drink, sides, things like that, and it would print out a ticket. And you take that ticket to essentially the host at the beginning, at the line. They'd take it and be able to start your order even before they sat you. And where we ended up was it was tiny. And there were maybe 5 tables in there. And even the one we were at,
There was more than that, but
was
it was
there more?
It
It was just narrow, right?
They had like a little bar area that like had like 4 stools, and then they had like practically an L shape
just
of
little tables
but
out
there
there.
was at least 6 or 7.
Okay. And because we sat up towards the front, we didn't really get into it. And it, better or worse, it was like this hot, kind of like just tiny little shop thing where it felt very authentic.
Yes.
And you go in, and the seats were so tiny. Or just, there were stools, but they were super
I didn't
short.
think they were tiny.
They were child size, and for someone like Amy, they were fine. They work, and you sit on it, it's just fine. But it's surprisingly how far you're like squatting down to get onto these stools. But it was such a great experience just to be like sitting in there, getting the ramen and consuming all this. It was neat. It was really fun. I wished, in a way, I had more time there and didn't eat as much because I would have loved to have tried like multiple
Eat
places, right? But that was really neat, and I would say definitely worth checking out.
And one of the things to keep in mind is that those ticket machines are actual like old. If you think soda vending machines, they're actually vending machines because now we have now we think about those modern kiosks where you type stuff in. But they've had this for a long time. You just
it's
press
so
your
cool.
press your buttons, you pay, you get your ticket, and it's already getting made.
Yeah, that was such a neat concept to see how they did that. It was fun. That added a lot to it. I'm trying to think other things that we just went to or saw that were really cool. For us, when we went to check out the Imperial Palace, that was really pretty. It's one of those things that you really can't get into it. It's the Imperial Palace. There's some areas you can get into if you pre-arrange and they approve you. We did go through the gardens,
We went
which is
to
open.
the bar district of Fusa and saw a very angry, what I thought was a Russian guy.
I think it was Russian as well.
We
started that night kind of running through where we went to. We were just looking up and down the street for something that caught our attention. We ended up in a Mexican bar,
It was
essentially.
I think it was a tequila bar, but yeah, it had a very Mexico feel on the inside. Like I didn't even feel like we were in Japan. It was very typical.
odd.
It was very typical Mexico kind of party kind of place. And then when we walked out again. We went to this other restaurant that was this other bar that I thought was a lot better. Then the music was really loud also, and it was apparently Wayne loved the DJ there because there was like really good music that he was
was
playing.
spinning great. The first place was all like Hispanic music for
Yeah.
the most part, which was like, but I'm in Japan. And then the only draw was kind of walked in and there was this bikini-clad gal dancing. I don't even know where she was from. She didn't look Japanese.
And she looked Hispanic.
Well, did she look a little?
She looked like she was from Mexico, and I know the people that were working there were also Hispanic because they owned it.
Yeah, it was interesting. And eventually a group of guys that seemed like they're from Turkey or somewhere came in and we're all went around. We're just like, yeah, we're done. Walked out of there. Ended up at this other place that was...
I don't even know the specific.
yeah,
place.
genre-wise, I don't know what to even
It was
call
just
it.
a very good party place. They had the flashy lights. It was dark. They had a
There
dart
were still-
machine.
There were still small areas, but it had a dart machine, which
That was
one
my
of our
favorite
focuses.
highlight of the night.
When we showed up, it seemed like there was a bunch of Russian dudes in there because some guy was wearing an outfit. It had the classic like mullet, almost blonde hair kind of thing. Looked Russian as hell, and he was wearing an outfit that said like parental advisory and a bunch of like curse words all over it and stuff. I was just like, what? But no one paid attention to us. We sat down, had some drinks, hung out until mid-room, played darts, which Amy decided to just waste everybody in, win everything.
I didn't know what I was doing until like John's
won
wife had
everything.
John's wife was telling me the rules of the game, and apparently I was doing well without even knowing what I was doing.
It's a basic countdown game where you start at like so many points and you
700.
have to drop it to 0. And Amy won each time. But then, yeah, after we had gotten out of the bar scene kind of thing, we ran into like the drunken aftermath on the street. And that's where this maybe Russian dude.
He sounded like when he was speaking in his English, it sounded like a Russian accent. But he was talking, so he had very good Japanese. He was yelling at the police in perfect Japanese, and then he would talk to this Japanese old man. He would yell at this Japanese old man who
Yeah,
pissed
he
him
was
off in
fighting
the
with
first
old
place.
man.
Yeah.
And the police were doing what
They were trying to calm him
police aren't
down.
Too nice. Because, yeah, they just kind of like, hey.
They couldn't put their hands on it, and they were just trying to calm him down. He was telling the police what was going on in perfect Japanese with a bit of an accent, and then he would yell back at this old man that he would say stuff in English, but then he would do a whole bunch of Japanese, like saying all these curse words in Japanese, calling him like an old fart and stuff like that. And then he would say a curse word in English, and he would go back to the police and talk to the police in Japanese, and then he was yelling a lot.
Yeah, no, it was entertaining to watch. You saw some other kind of locals who were watching a little bit like, and it just surprised me because I mean, everyone in Japan is super nice, and the police are not. I think Amy had explained it like not really allowed to really get in on somebody, and some other people said as well that if they did, they'd probably be in just as much trouble as anyone who's involved in the altercation.
A whole bunch of like crime in Japan typically is like more like, I don't know how to explain it, like downplayed or something, because John was telling us something about if somebody breaks into your house, you still do not have the right
To like confront them.
Yeah, to like even like punch them or get them back to protect yourself or something like that, because even if they do a breaking and entering,
As long as they're not harming you,
you can't harm them
you
back.
can't harm them. Which is totally not an American concept.
Interesting. Yeah.
Ours is like, make my
enter-
day,
yeah.
you're dead. Right? You came in my house, I get to kill you. There, they said there's a whole lot of just like, you're not even do that. It was interesting, too, because I never once felt in danger or threatened at all in Japan.
Yeah.
And we were in the big city area, right? When we met one of the locals there, or kind of transplant local Utah, there, he told us that Fusa's like hardcore. Like, no, this area is rough. I was looking at him like, by what standard?
But Utah's life decisions sometimes are a
Well,
little
he
bit.
seems very not naive, but just young and
Yeah,
well,
he's just very young in his decisions.
I just looked at him. I was like, "What?" Because I was here and it was late and walking around. I've not once like there was even one time, Amy and I coming back a little late had to take a different line into Fusa, and so we didn't end up right at the station next to us. And we were walking back to John's place at like 1 or 2 in the morning or something. It was late through like back alley stuff, and it was just like, This is nothing. Everywhere I wandered, it felt completely safe.
We got lost in Kyoto and walking back at around 1 or 2, and we were safe the entire time.
Yeah, so I just don't know what the reference is. Now, it's not like I ever saw anyone who I could have even thought was Yakuza or anything. Or
There was one.
Was there?
There, I think, because when we were walking with Yuta, I think, in Nakano, he was like, and there's a Yakuza right there, and he's like, don't look at him. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I missed that completely.
I looked back, and he's like, don't look. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's
I
like,
missed
don't
that
make eye
completely,
contact.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that would have even made me think.
I think you were walking ahead of us, and
I
you were
might have
taking
been.
pictures, and so he and I were back there, and he saw the Yakuza, and he's like, don't look at him. I'm like, okay, I already did, though.
Yeah. So it was such a safe thing. People are so nice that even me not knowing any Japanese, other than I could kind of say hello-ish. I could say konnichiwa, even if it sounds horrible. The best thing I could do the whole time was just I still can't say it well to anyone's ears, but saying arigato gozaimasu, essentially to just say thanks, because that's all you really need in most of the conversation. And saying hi a lot, nodding and saying hi, even if I'm not really sure what they're saying, and it seemed to work.
We loved how polite it was, and we sort of had, because everyone's there to welcome you when you come into the shop, and everyone's so polite when taking your order or helping you out with things. We just had a bit of reverse culture shock when we came back, because
Especially after being there for 9 months.
we were
I
there
can
9
imagine.
months, and then our first experience in the States was a McDonald's employee in an airport who was decidedly unhappy, and we were momentarily offended.
Well, so it's funny you say that, because for us, part of the transition back was spending a day in Seoul, in Korea, on the way back.
So we went to Gangnam.
Yeah, we went to Gangnam and got to see the style, and went to some of the malls and stuff around there. Some of Yuta's friends that he basically pestered into showing us around, which is great. But it was interesting because they are so Americanized by comparison to Japan that the cities feel much more Americanized, and that they're bigger roads and the way people are running around. In Japan, for all the people running around, there seems to be some logic to it, or a general social consensus on how you approach situations. I mentioned the trains, because they both get as packed, but in Japan there's a certain level of, yep, we're all going to try to fit on here, and you will get squished, and we did get squished in, but it wasn't mean, right, or anything. Where in Korea, when people are getting off the trains in Japan, all you had to do is say sumimasen, and people would part ways and let you out. In Korea, maybe it was just the old people, but they were just like, I'm coming through without a word. And so they would just part you and rush through football style. And I was just like, this is decidedly different than Japan.
The thing that I noticed, though, and I don't know if it's a specific area of Korea that we went to, but in Japan, it would be that super crowded only at a specific time of the rush on the way home. But in Korea, we were there pretty early in the day.
It was
and
packed
it was
every
really
time.
packed. And it was it's not like that in this time of day in Japan. And it might have been the specific area that we were in, but the fact that we were even in Tokyo and it wasn't even like that in the Tokyo area at that time of day.
Tokyo was fine.
But also, it might just depend, because a lot of people in Tokyo are typically office workers or business workers that they wouldn't be out at the specific time, whereas in Gangnam, I have no idea what kind of work is kind of around the area, so they could be out at different times just because they're not those business workers or something like that.
That, and we didn't have enough time to really get to know Seoul at all. It was a touch and go, just so I can say we've stepped foot in and got something to eat and left. Definitely different feel. Like in Japan, it was super clean in the sense of the air and stuff like that. Big difference I noticed. Japan was clear. If it got hazy, anything, it was more just clouds coming in and stuff like that. Like when we were visiting Fuji and trying to look at it. Where in Korea, as soon as we landed, it was just the haze there was kind of smog, right? It was more. It felt like pollution than anything. I just looking around, I was like, that I'm looking in the distance, and that's like brown.
Yeah.
That was very different for me.
In Tokyo, they're very conscious about it. All the
Well,
recycling.
they do everything
and
to try to keep things, very much recycling.
Yeah, I mean, even even with the smokers, it's now they can't just smoke everywhere. In restaurants, they do have a lot of restaurants are smoking,
still have,
non-smoking.
yeah.
But they have dedicated smoking areas that smokers are only allowed to smoke in. If you smoke outside of those designated areas, then
you get fined really bad.
And even like a donut place, Mr. Donut, they had this specific small little sitting area that was closed off for people who wanted to smoke and eat their donuts or something like that.
Yep.
So some places will actually have a closed off areas. Actual family restaurants, on the other hand, they don't actually close off the smoking areas.
It's
just a smoking and a
non-smoking. When we went to
non-smoking.
Denny's, they had kind of the smoking area on one side, and it's in a way it feels to me a lot like 80s US.
I was gonna say, like,
Because growing up in the 80s, that was the case. There was a lot of areas that were just open smoking areas, but they was kind of separated.
right.
Because I remember that at Denny's as a kid.
I remember at Village Inn.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's interesting in that sense, in that Japan still has a lot of smokers, and it's more socially, I think, accepted compared to the U.S.
But
Like,
they
it
just
does
can't
feel like
smoke
20 or
wherever
30
they
years
want.
ago. Yeah. Where here we've gotten to the point, right, where you can't smoke pretty much in any public forum. If you go to a restaurant, no.
Right.
Simple as that. Unless you're in specific places. And so it was interesting to see that, but it's, again, just felt like they're just not where we are now socially with smoking. But it was really interesting. All right. It's a challenge because we're getting close to the end of the show time. It's amazing how quickly time flies when you're telling stories and doing things. I wanted to capture kind of last overall things to kind of throw out to there for everyone. Please, again, go check out the blogs and stuff we posted up. You'll see more depth about each day or sections of what we did. One of my big highlights of Japan as a whole was getting to drive and renting a car and driving up Hakone and out to Fuji. To me, that was amazing. And as a car guy, it's one of the best areas you could drive in the world. Holy cow. John took us to some roads that were amazing. I want to ship my car out there and go race. It would be so much fun. And we didn't once run into cops that were harassing anybody for doing anything, just driving. And on Hakone specifically, there were no cops, and there were GTRs racing up at 100 plus miles an hour up these roads. Oh, it was amazing. So So that's one of the big things I want to throw out. Mount Fuji's gorgeous. We didn't actually get up it, but we got to see it from multiple angles, and that was beautiful. We were fortunate enough that the weather was clear when we could see it. It was both clouded and not, but we could see it for the most part. And it was nice. Weather was great for us. The sakura was beautiful. All that. Amy, anything you'd kind of like capture the whole from the trip that let people know about?
No, there's a lot here and there. Like, I'm just glad that I was able to get back, and my first time ever seeing the cherry blossoms. So I'm glad, because I only ever went to Japan in the summer. The only other time I went in another season was winter, and I was 5 months old, going to my uncle's wedding. So I don't remember any of that. That was also the first time I actually went to Korea at the airport. But other than that, I'm just really glad I got to go in the spring season, because that's been my lifelong plan. What I really wanted to do is go see the cherry blossoms in person, because we don't have them in Colorado. So that was probably the best thing, was being able to go in that season.
Nice. And it was beautiful. It really was. Everywhere I went, it was gorgeous. And when we went to the big temple and shrine area just outside the Imperial Palace, those cherry blossoms were amazing. I was floored by how pretty they were at the temple.
And that's the thing about the cherry blossoms, is that you always see it in anime,
Yeah.
Yep.
referred to all the time, and you're like, there's so much about it. How pretty could it be? I mean, they're flowers, and then you go, and it's just
Everywhere.
It takes your breath away.
Well, and part of it is it is everywhere, because even riding the trains, you'd see it all along the waterways, and it's just where parks and stuff like that. And what's crazy to me is because it is such a short season that they're in blossom. They're just pretty green trees the rest of the year, right? But so when seeing them in blossom, it's such a transformation of those areas. It's amazing. And it's funny because in so many anime, you'll see them during blossoming time frame. It makes me laugh because kind of focuses it. Well, that means this anime is taking place right around this time of year.
Right.
Every time, right? Or every time they kind of
But it
focus
also
it.
really depends on where the anime
region,
characters are
yeah.
living in, because cherry blossoms do migrate from the south upward.
So they would actually have on the news, they would have cherry blossom forecasts of when, like, where they're going to be blooming next, and you can see it, like, go on up.
Nice.
Yeah, because we lived
Yeah.
in Akita, which is pretty much further north than a lot of other places that people typically go. We ended up being slightly later than the traditional season.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So it was
one
more like
thing-
now is ours.
One thing I kind of want to mention, because there was, in my mom's hometown, Kumamoto, there was these terrible earthquakes that have happened in this past year. Cherry blossom season should have been March this year, but my mom told me when I got back from Japan that it actually started around the same time as Tokyo, or it's starting up now, because something on the earth has completely changed, and so now the cherry blossoms are really late this year, whereas their neighboring prefecture, Fukuoka, actually had their cherry blossoms already and around the same time, and their season is done, but Kumamoto has just recently started or something because the earthquakes totally screwed up their ground, and
Oh, wow.
so that's pretty sad, but the fact that they're still growing is good anyway.
No, that's good. Well, and we also saw a ton in Korea as well. They were everywhere out there. A little further away from where we were at, but traveling on the express train from the airport into town, saw huge groves of them around. But again, it was a different feel because for me the smog and such. But yeah, no, cherry blossoms were gorgeous. Definitely a time frame to check out for anybody. If you have the opportunity, you won't be disappointed. It's just they're everywhere. Plus, like you said, all the seasonal stuff, all the flavors of drinks and little things. Because even like ice cream in some places, and other
Yeah,
stuff,
we had
just
they had
the coffee that you
sakura
had,
flavored ramune. That
Yep,
was really
that was really tasty.
That was I didn't taste really sakura. I didn't actually. To me, it didn't taste very different from other one.
It was a light flavoring, yeah.
But there are other things that they tasted like cherries essentially.
So,
Because it's
but
cherry blossoms.
it was cool. I had a great time. I definitely want to go back. I feel much more like I need to spend some serious time learning some Japanese before I go, because I would have liked to have had more conversations with locals personally. That's something I missed out on. Was very fortunate to meet Yuta, who was able to show us around a little more and give us a little more inside view of some things. The one gentleman that I almost conversed with, which was this really drunk guy down in that small district that we were at, the small area of kind of tight bars and such, a little red light district, that for a moment got to talk to, just because he was just like, "Oh, where are you from, America?" And we were like, "Yeah," we were saying like, from Boulder or Denver area and stuff in Colorado. He's like, "Oh, I've been to Boulder," and this and that. It was just fun to kind of see that interaction. To so many other cliche things of like even drunk guys at the train stations after work and stuff like that were just like, whoa, and a guy being wheeled out in a chair or something by cops I thought was maybe dead.
And we saw many people throw up at the station.
It's that classic thing of when they do party after work kind of thing, it is hard. And you see the results.
Right.
Very interesting. Oh, and I actually tried a bidet. What? There's things I wish that we had more of, like, heated toilet seats. They're kind of nice.
The heated toilet
Yeah.
seats.
They're the
And
best.
Got really
little logical
used to
things
that.
like putting a sink on the back of the toilet so that the water you could use and just rinse right there, and it's being used for the toilet the next time. Makes so much sense. What? Yeah. There's so much little logical things in a lot of cases. Anyhow, we are done with the show for today. It is time to let it go and transition on. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little quick clip into some of the thoughts on Japan. 2 hours cannot capture what we experienced in almost a month. And so this is just kind of highlights of what came up while we were talking. By all means, check out our vlogs that we have out there for what we did on certain days, and feel free to write in and ask questions that I'll be happy to answer in future episodes of Show X. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and that's it for today. We got to go. So thank you to my guests.
Thank you.
So one more time so people can come find you if they want to. Amy, where can they come check you out?
So you can check out my YouTube channel or my Instagram. It's Melon Dreams Cosplay. My YouTube, it's Melon Dreams without spaces. Cosplay is separate. And I think my Instagram is all together.
Okay. And Ondine and Matthew?
We're at Zenko Akko Cosplay. It does have a dot between the two, Zenko.Akko. And that's both on Facebook and Instagram, Zenko.Akko.
So please, everyone, get out there and check them out. Follow them. They do amazing things. And if you have any questions for them, you can also write in at showx@vtwproductions.com, and we will let them know. So thanks, you guys, and we will check you again next week. Bye. Now I'm going to try to hit buttons and see if it all breaks. Do this. It's trying to break.
Goodbye. See you next zombie. Good night. Also, guys.